Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dennis Delor. I'm the Director for St. Clair County Parks. I wanted to welcome you here tonight. Sorry that we're starting a little late. We had a little technical difficulty there, as you could see. We didn't want everyone's necks to get kinked looking at this wall, so we had tried to set it up so you could see from this wall, but it didn't work out. So at least you have the visuals here, so if you want to see it up close, you can come up to the front and check that out. So what we're here today, this is our second session, and we're talking about the North Channel Park, or is what we're calling it right now, North Channel property, which we are in the developmental stages, and we invited you here for feedback on the input for the park and where we want to go in the future in our development and our planning and implementation. So I'm here with a group that has more information about it than I do. I actually just became the park director earlier this month, so I'm learning as we go along as well. So, but these folks know a lot about the property and its condition, and also where we'd like to go in the future. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and if you have any questions for me as we go along, I can try to answer them for you.
I'm Jillian Benalio. I'm with Smith Group, part of the design firm that's been working on the park. And then my colleague Steve, and then Pam also. And
Hello.
so let's speak more. I know some of you guys were at the first public meeting, and we took a lot of your feedback and working with the Parks Department. We've worked a lot of those elements in, and we're kind of here to show you how that plan has evolved and kind of some of the considerations that you guys have brought to us, how we were able to work with those and bring them in, kind of show you how this park has developed since then. We do have some handouts as well, so you guys can see this a little bit closer. And then we can kind of go over it a bit more as well. Some of the main things that I know you guys had spoken about before were the safety for the beach area and bringing in some of those elements and just making sure that it's a usable part of for everybody. So hopefully, hope you guys see those visions that we brought in.
About 7 wide.
Nice and
If
big,
you wanted
so you
to
can read it.
speak about the development expectations like that.
Sure. Yeah. So, hello everyone. I wasn't here for the first one, but my name is Steve Thomas. I'm working along Jillian and Pam here. We completed our master plan level coastal analysis and engineering to take a look at currents, wave action, what slope the beach wants to be, even down to like what size the sand wants to be in order for it to not migrate downstream. So we took a look at that and concluded that baseline, this is a great opportunity for a beach. We've got currents that are within swimming comfort levels. We've got wave action that's between 1 foot to 1.5 feet, which is totally reasonable for a beach. In periods of high storm surges, I don't expect people to be really out swimming at that point, but we're taking that into consideration. What you'll see on the master plan there in the beach area, we've got a 1 to 12 slope, which is a pretty gradual slope. For every 12 feet forward, you're dropping a foot. We've got between 4 to 5 feet of water level, and up on the top part, we've got about 7,500 square feet of beach area. What you'll see on the right-hand side is a stone groin as well, and that serves a couple different purposes. One, it creates a buffer between the adjacent marina, so boat traffic is kind of, there's a buffer between beachgoers. Great opportunity for signage. It's also a good opportunity for aquatic and avian habitat, as well as kind of creating that small cove for to help prevent soil migration and to help with currents as well. So that's kind of where we're at with the beach. We were looking at doing a little bit more of a gradual slope out so we get a longer waiting period. But what happens with that, because of the grades and the topology that we have, it would mean that the beach would really kind of close off that small wetland area that we have to the north. So we didn't want to do that. We wanted to keep it to one side to allow water to kind of recharge that area. And so that's kind of where we came up with the beach today. We feel that it's a good size for the park, and it would create great opportunities for beach goers and park goers to just really enjoy the great waterfront there.
Yeah, so if you were here before, Steve was mentioning how we were kind of showing it over here, and we did make that choice to kind of move it over here just to work with the land that's out there and to make sure we weren't closing off of this area. And then with that development, there is also the addition of a splash pad up in this area. So if you still aren't the most comfortable with like swimming out in the channel, there is that area for like all skill levels, so they can still enjoy that kind of a water experience at this park. And then, I don't know, Pam, if you wanted to speak about some of the other changes.
Absolutely. Well, I think I know some of you are probably here and some of you weren't here last time. And so what we're really going to do is give you an overview of the whole plan. And so if you were here, maybe you'll see some of the things mentioned. And if this is your first time through, we don't want you really being lost in the plan either. So the plan you have in your hands is exactly like what's up here. So you can look at it maybe more comfortably. I don't know if we want to turn more lights on so people can maybe see a little better, since this isn't all that helpful. But what I'd really like to do is, does that help? Let's start up at the road and the entrance in. And so the parking lot you'll see now is set up, and we've rotated that parking lot. What that allowed us to do is we really heard about a desire to look at additional parking spaces. So one way that we could do that instead of having it sort of parallel to the road was to move it vertically. And that elongated and then increased the amount of parking. You'll also see then, if you're looking to your drawing, look beside it, and you'll see kind of a light green area that's a little lighter. That is going to be, that's set up to be like grass paver. So it's got a hard surface underneath it, open bricks, think of that, and then the grass can grow up in it. And that would be additional overflow parking. We've also have in that spot a food truck, a place, to have a food truck. We talked about how there might be the ability in our meeting last time of concessions or food, or how people could get something. So one of the ways that's really being accomplished now is through food trucks in a lot of parks. And that allows for variety. You can change them up. You can modernize with a new truck. It's much more flexible, and people are really getting so they respond to the whole food truck idea. You'll also see a crosswalk shown coming across the highway. Now, this has not been discussed with MDOT yet, because this is a master plan, right? We're just getting our ideas out. And so that is showing to connect and bring everyone off the Bridge to Bay Trail into being able to come into the park. And so there'll be trailhead, what you call bicycle trailhead facilities, bike racks. You could park and take your bike off and get on the trail at this location, or if you're riding the trail to this location, you can come in and utilize that. So that also provides a nice place if you wanted to walk to the park as well. The small building kind of up in the corner then is a maintenance facility. And that's where there's a current old building there right now, structure, but there's water and utilities there. And so by putting it there, it's very accessible for park staff. They can see what's going on when they're at that building, but we can also reuse a lot of very expensive infrastructure and be able to be wise about how we do that. So other features then added right dead on with the parking area. There's sort of a large kind of reddish brown structure shown on the drawing, that would be a picnic pavilion then. So it really, as you pull in, it gives you something to really focus on, and easy to find, easy to get your coolers out of your cars, and be able to use that. There's a restroom building then shown over to the side, and another smaller, just couple table picnic facility. So if you weren't really part of the big group, and there'll be opportunities to have independent tables as well out here at the park. We didn't draw those little boxes on, but there'll be lots of opportunities for just picnicking and enjoying. So you see, kind of as our group has been working, we've been creating spaces out here for different activities. So you can come for all year round and have different activities to do, right? We know there's always the 4th of July weekend, but that's only one weekend out of the whole year, right? So we try and take a look at that. So then there was interest in having some ability to have performances out here. So integrated into that then, you'll see that grass pave coming down and providing a paved surface for the county showmobiles. And one of the things St. Clair County has is several, how many you have, Dennis? Two very nice showmobiles. They're kept in a barn, so they're clean and sparkling out at Goodalls County Park, but they will bring them out and set them up. And they fold out stage on them, and sound with them, and lighting with them. They're kind of an all-in-one package. So we planned the circulation routes then to be able to get them in, provide an opportunity that if you wanted to have some waterfront concerts or something like that, or you wanted to have a small band event, that there's a place planned for that within the plan, and that we can get them in and out and be able to do that safely. So as Jillian mentioned, there's an ad of the splash pad and a playground, and really knowing that there's days when the water may not be swimmable or too cold, but yet it's hot, and we can offer that splash pad water play opportunity. It helps spread people out in the park. It helps people make choices and be able to move around. And then we have just a couple nice open lawn spaces that can be used for a variety of uses. So in this planning effort, you'll notice all of the buildings, right, are towards the top of the plan, and that's because of the soils out there and the wetlands and all the studying that's been done to identify where those are. So we want to, and we need to, because of permitting, keep those buildings out of those areas. So if you're kind of wondering why we don't have the restroom right next to the beach, we have to have it back. We can provide portable toilet units and things like that, but we cannot build like permanently out in that area.
And you can see that boundary on the plan where like the greens change. You'll see the flood elevations and the wetland boundaries.
No, good. Helpful. Thank you. So if you kind of see that, there's a lot of thought to where things are to work with the wonderful park that we have. So then we kind of move beyond the activity spaces and then more into sort of waterfront focused activities and places to be. So the canoe and kayak launch is shown in this location with a small pavilion connected to it where you could meet, or you could take a break or have your lunch there if you wanted to, and then really arriving to the beach using a series of boardwalks. So if you want to go for a nature walk, maybe you don't want to go to the beach. Maybe you're not a swimmer, but you want to get out and you want to walk. Think year-round how nice that is to be out and see the migratory birds and everything else that's going on out here. Julie and Stephen really talked about the beach and the in-depth study to make sure that that was the location, and that is the very best location is in this area. But to also access the water, there is ways to get out and view from the boardwalk. This boardwalk that kind of comes up into the middle along that sort of channel or lagoon up in there, that is really a deck, and then like we're showing like large stones going, so you can go down and put your feet in the water, sit on the stones. It's a little more, if this is kind of more an active space, this would be a little more passive space. It's not meant for swimming, but it's meant just, if you've been up to the Blue Water River Walk, in Port Huron, right along the river there, there's spaces like that there, and they've been very popular to be able to go and sit there and just enjoy the water. So you will see a little stub coming over to the DNR property, and that's will actually just be a service entrance. So that won't be a public connection between the two. But if you notice, as you all know, this beach will have to be taken care of, more sand probably brought into it over time. And the route then really would be to be able to bring maintenance vehicles in and back out to take care of that through special permission from the DNR. So it's not really meant to have it'll be gated, let's put it that way, on both ends of it. So it won't be a primary entrance in. And did I make it all the way around?
I think so.
Yeah.
What's the lighter blue area next to the
Right here?
elongated? Yeah.
Well, right now that's a wetland area.
Okay.
And that was mapped.
Yeah. In like the seasonal, that water level, it fluctuates a bit more, so sometimes it's a bit more dry, so it's not
Right, okay.
quite as open of water, so.
But, we tried to listen to the site, not just force everything on the site, but listen to what's out there and get the facilities, where they fit ecologically and fit for permitting, but yet I think really embrace a lot of opportunity out here for everything from water play to having a special event in your community, or just stopping by for a bike ride and park your bike and yet be able to walk out to the channel and see what's going on. So.
Yeah, as Pam was mentioning, we wanted to be strategic with where we had all of these elements, reusing utilities where we can up to the northwest, and then just the circulation in general, like what are the users, who are the users, and what do they want to do? What do you guys want to experience throughout the plan? And so, strategically placing the kayak launch a little bit further to the north, because some users might not want to carry their kayak all the way down towards the waterfront. So where can we make that in the closest proximity, the most accessible, ADA-friendly way to that area? And then just kind of having these different pockets of experiences, like Pam was saying, the little lookout there, kind of where that wetland was mentioned and that channel. There's going to be lots of birds and aquatic life, especially in that kind of lagoon area. So it's a great opportunity for bird watchers, for just people wanting to hang out passively, recreation and so forth. So, we really wanted to, be mindful of what these different experiences are and where they are along the park. And I think we really landed on a good approach with this.
Is there any access to the swimming area as you designated here? Looks
Yeah.
like ground piece land.
Yeah, so that boardwalk coming down, and then, that tan area, that's the
Okay,
beach, so you
So
can,
be able to come in either boardwalk.
Yeah.
And this is all wetland. So to get everyone out to that point, we can't just fill it in with dirt. That we wouldn't be able to get a permit to do that. So what we're showing there is actually a boardwalk system.
Yeah. Is there
So the nice part of that, it's other times of the year, if you think about coming in here, you know, you can make a nice looped walk and up through and back, that there's a loop that you could walk if you're someone who goes out and likes to walk. I mean, there'll be a measurement to that. You can figure out how many loops it takes to get in a mile, and, you know, just another opportunity to enjoy it.
How deep is the water by that beach area?
The water gets down to 3 or 4 feet. I think the elevation is 571 and the top of beach is like 578. But the water will fluctuate between like 576 and 578 depending on the time of year.
That's the height of the water. What's the depth of the water?
The depth of the water could go out towards about 4 or 5 feet, but it's a wading, it's a gradual
Yeah,
slope
so
down.
in this area, kind of where you see like that lighter blue color on your map,
Right.
that's where it'll be a little bit like that shallower gradual slope. And then when you get out to where like those blue lines and that darker blue, that's kind of where it just becomes that normal depth where it'll fluctuate a bit more.
Okay.
But
Now, I see you got a play lawn. Do you intend to put any horseshoe courts or anything like that in there?
not at this time, it's just kind of an open
Do
lawn.
you have any basketball courts for the kids?
No, no. And I'll kind of talk about that, you know, there's, you know, requests like people brought up ideas for pickleball or
Yeah.
basketball, things like that. And the county park philosophy has been, in the development of their parks, is that they're built to be broader, unique facilities with the local communities and providing the athletic. So things like baseball diamonds and pickleball courts and activities such as that, there's the county recreation millage, and part of that is granted back to the communities every year with the purpose of a community within your own community park being able to provide a lot of those activities.
Because we have that here in the Clay Township, right?
Right, and you get
And that's
millage
like
money
a
back.
mile or two away, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I see there's a ticket booth. You have to pay to use this park? Do you have to get a ticket at the gate, or?
I can address that. One of the things that we are looking at is, in several of our parks, because of the popularity of the parks, is that because we're a millage-based department, county residents already pay for their parks. Non-residents do not. So if there would be a ticket booth, it would be a way to collect fees from non-residents for using our facilities.
Were the parking spaces revisited? This looks like a lot bigger than 50 spaces, I think. Isn't that what was discussed the first meeting?
We
Yeah.
did expand it.
It's
There's a
75 to 80.
Yeah,
now.
75 to 80 now spaces, and then plus the ability to really expand towards the boat launch with additional parking. And that's been a kind of philosophy in the development of the other county parks. You say like Fort Gratiot, is that we've provided, and we didn't fill every niche and corner of the property with other things, in that we've designated potential future parking areas, and actually we've built those out pretty much at Fort Gratiot as time went on. But we have to figure out a way we're going to phase all this development in a cost-effective method, and without having, as more facilities get added, often that's when you need to continue to add the parking.
Well,
And
how
as
wide are
budget
these-
allows.
How wide are the sidewalks going to be? That's one. Are you going to be able to ride bikes on the walkways and golf carts?
Well, I'm not sure what the golf cart policy is.
ADA, if it's used for an assistive device, they can be used on the pathways as an assistive device. Otherwise, no motorized vehicles are allowed in the park. The pathways will vary from 8 to 10 feet wide on average, which exceeds universal, well, 10 feet is universal accessibility.
And bicycles?
Yeah, bicycles will be allowed to ride on the pathways. But the boardwalks, that'd be something for discussion, because boardwalks, because of safety, they're elevated, sometimes an issue with that.
So where does the county stand on electric bikes? Is that considered motorized, or is
Oh,
that? Because that's the
4
traffic.
different versions of electric bikes. They're
Right.
very challenging, and we're, as a state, we're working on that with e-bikes. And
Okay.
I don't have a direct answer for you on that right now, but it's something that's being discussed statewide with our park systems.
And then I had a question, we had talked about, is there no plan for any type of fishing pier for kids? Or any type of fishing at all for kids?
Pam, do you want to address that with the observation decks, or?
Well, yeah, we had observation decks put in there, and a discussion went through, a thoughtful discussion about fishing and observation decks often don't work very well together because of people doing this with lines, why people, if you look at and think about how busy these areas are going to be, that with the people and the fishing trying to coexist, it was determined that this would not be desirable to integrate those uses. So right now they're shown as observation decks.
I don't think the fishing would be that good there anyhow.
Depends how good a fisherman you are.
What color are you using, Blair?
The kayak storage area, is that for folks that are coming up and they're gonna store their kayak while they participate in the park, or is that for short-term, long-term? What is the definition of how that'll be used?
Well, I think as the plan develops, that'll be refined. I think it could be everything you're mentioning, but nothing's been, at this master plan level, that hasn't been explored any further, other than we thought the idea was a good idea, and we wanted to make sure we saved space for it.
Like kayak rental or something?
No, I think it would
Well,
be,
based on its location in relationship to the launch, someone would have to take their kayak and walk it over to it, even though it's only 20 feet according to the scale.
A lot of communities, what they're doing with these sort of storage areas is when they come ashore, they want a safe place to store their kayak.
Right,
If they're not familiar with the area, maybe even lock it up like a bike rack.
right.
It's kind of very similar to that.
it's a rack kind of thing. It isn't like a, and maybe you were referring to, you know, the launch itself will be like the universal accessible launches at other county park sites. The storage can be anything from, I've seen just a split rail fence,
Right.
and that people can lean their craft on and lock them to that fence while they go and enjoy the park. There can also be like stacked racks, and sometimes those allow for extended. You can rent a slot for a summer or something like that. And there's a variety of ways, and here's one of those things too that keeps evolving. So when we develop a master plan like this, it's to really begin to focus at the spaces and knowing what is going in the different areas. As we are funded and we have the ability to go in and design the construction documents, those are designed based on that moment in time. So just think if we're suddenly building that in 4 years from today, there might be things available in 4 years from now that haven't even been thought of here. That happens a lot in recreation, because as the sport develops, so do all the things that go with it. But what it does tell us on this drawing is we know we want to save a space for the launch. We're looking at picnic and kind of kayaking and canoeing central activity in this area, and we know that we're saving some room for racks or storage or some sort of, what that will look like, we can't tell you today.
That's gonna be a long walk from the parking lot to that launch, carrying a kayak or a canoe.
Well, it is the closest we can get it. I will tell you that. And we all talked about it as a committee as to where that should be. But I will say this, more and more people are rolling them. If they're not able enough, like for me, I can't, but I can put it on the low roller cart and pull it behind me. And with the walks being 10 feet wide, that allows that space to be able to pull them. So We understand that, and actually we had looked at locations maybe more closer to being out to the channel, but we all came back to getting it as close as we could to the parking lot.
What is that growing area?
So that growing area serves a number of purposes. One being it's kind of a buffer between the adjacent marina. So boat traffic kind of coming through on the adjacent side to the right kind of creates a buffer for swimmers and beachgoers. So that's one. Two, it helps, the currents coming from, right to left, right? So it's helping with soil migration. So it's kind of, I don't want to use the word protected, but it's creating a cove or a little bit of a shelter from the current as well as the waves. The other benefit to it is it creates avian and aquatic habitat. It'll be large stone. There's going to be a lot of either fish or turtles or birds that will want to be able to use this area as a habitat for them.
So that wouldn't be something that somebody could walk out on and fish from there?
Right now, we're not encouraging that. We don't have that in the program at this point. It's a good location for signage for the park for people that might be kayaking along the river or the channel through there to kind of create a wayfinding opportunity. But at this point, it's not programmed for that.
Good location for fishing too, right at the end of it. It's a point, and you get a water depth change there.
Sure.
Have you guys done a labor study? Will the county be staffing the beach with a lifeguard? Or what type of an operational staffing to run a park like this?
That's a good question. We do not provide lifeguards at any of our beaches. It's self-policing, which has worked for us at Fort Gratiot County Park and how a lot of county park systems have adopted that. The staffing for this park generally, because we have, if we have flush toilets and we have bathrooms that need to be cleaned, we will have staff that's there daily once the park is operational. So we don't have any current plans right now for staff there until this is, this project is completed. But there will be staff on site. That's why there's a maintenance building for mowing, for maintaining the bathrooms, making sure that they're stocked and taking care of rentals, because the facility, having a picnic pavilion, our picnic pavilions are very popular. So we have a reservation policy. So staff will also handle that, making sure that the reservations are, the site's ready for the reservations.
And they'll man the ticket too, right?
Correct, once that comes online.
Wait,
Yeah, are you proposing a natural shoreline, or are you going to seawall any of this?
So that's kind of what Steve was also going at with the groin. It isn't going to be natural along that beach area. That will be more of like a man-made, maintained
Yeah,
beach area.
but
And
this
then-
is all the.
Yeah, but all of that in there,
It's all wetland.
the green, all the wetland, that will remain natural.
Seawall and
Yeah.
wetland.
Yeah, but no seawalls or anything. So that groin is the closest thing to a built structure going into that area.
And I would add too, if we have any of the kind of the stones, kind of those waiting stones that Pam was talking about by some of the observation decks, we might have the ability to have some large stones in there, but that's about it. Nothing really, no sheet pile walls or anything like that.
And that's not poured concrete. That's
Correct.
like
Yeah,
natural blocks that they're cut and you can
like
sit
they have
on.
in a pier or by the pier, not in a pier, like. That's something.
Well, we've really had a good time working on it, and it's,
I still think the bathroom should be where the small picnic pavilion is. Switch them out, something. I think that you're gonna have a lot of people.
It's too close to wetland.
well, we kind of
Yeah.
looked at our choices there.
I know
and-
that was probably a part,
Well,
consideration was
it
made.
was. One is because if we put the pavilion over here, we don't have great access to this really nice lawn
Yeah,
from it.
I mean, down
And-
right by the,
So we have something when you come in, as you enter the park, and you come out of your cars and you enter through, that we have this really open air structure that anyone, if you're there on a Monday and it's not rented for the weekend, like the weekends are really popular, but you can just get out of your car and use your own lunch and and enjoyed that. But that was kind of the thoughts that went into it. I hear what you're saying, but with the thought just being to really be able to focus on the pavilion and put that in a really strong location to kind of give you a sense of presence out there. If you look out there right now, right, it's just a big open space. So we're trying to make spaces that are interesting and you can have a lot of people doing a lot of different things, but not all on top of each other either. One thing I find, you know, I've been working in parks for about 30 years, is I'm a person that tends not to hook the restroom always on the shelter, because that way, if you're...
Down here, I meant down here.
Oh, this one down here?
Yeah,
Where would you move that?
I would move the bathroom to there.
Oh, but we
It's kind of
can't.
close to the splash pad and all that.
That's in the 100-year floodplain down there.
Okay, that's what I was looking.
And, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll see also on the sheet, besides like where that wetland delineation is, there's another thicker line closer up.
Do you see the wiggly
That kind
line?
of,
okay, that, yeah.
yeah, so
that
that's
is-
another one that we'd like to keep all the structures
Oh, okay.
kind of north of
That
that.
makes sense.
So does the county already have, like the food truck you got here, how does that work? It's the county, like has a Tuesday night food truck thing, or is the, am I able to rent that from the county?
It would be a
or-
vendor. It'd be a vendor. We don't have food services, so during special events, if someone rents, let's say there's the showmobiles on site and someone's doing an event and they bring in a food vendor, the food vendor would be part of being able to use that facility. We've had in the past where we've had food vendors that come in and actually through agreement, actually will sell hot dogs, like in Fort Gratiot County Park, we had one. And it is a nice addition to the park. It's a place where people go and have lunch, and we see the benefit in that. So it's just a matter of a agreement where it benefits the residents and also that the county covers their costs.
A lot of the state parks even are moving to
Vendor.
food truck vendors, and so it's sort of the current wave right now in recreation.
It's nice because you're planned for setup for them, connections.
But it will be controlled by the county, correct? So like the showmobile
Yep.
won't be open, available if I want to bring a portable stage there and hold an event on a weekend or something.
You could rent, it's like all of our other parks. So we have like, coming up October 1st is Chili Fest,
Right?
the Bluegrass Chili Fest of the Goodals. And that's basically where they come in, they rent the facilities, they rent the grounds,
Okay.
they use our stage, and they do musical venue in the park. But that is all contained by the organizers of the group. They just lease the
Right.
property from us or rent
Gotcha.
the property from us for the
Gotcha.
event.
Anybody else have questions or comments? I don't know if I mentioned it when we started, but there is a sign-in sheet in the back, so if, as you leave, if you guys do want to be updated, you can leave your name and your email, and we'll make sure you're included with that correspondence. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier.
What is the status, like when will you come up with a final plan and proceed with the process of getting it actually moving?
I think we're pretty close
We're
to
close.
finalizing that. The actual construction process and the length of time will depend on funding. We're being very aggressive looking at grants to help, fund the park and looking at our balance and our budget and how we can go about that over the next couple of years. So I wouldn't expect this park to be done by the end of 2023, but it's a process, and we're starting to work through that process, and we'll have a better idea now with a plan on numbers and what it's going to cost.
And you do already have a major grant application in
We do,
for review.
and it scored really well. So,
Is that I was just gonna ask you, did you do it in our trust fund?
yep. So we've made some tweaks to the plan, which is what Pam talked about at the very beginning with the parking lot orientation and a few other things. But we found with DNR trust fund grants, you don't ask for money for parking lots, you ask for money for trailheads.
Yep.
So we asked for money for a trailhead, and it scored better that way. And we were able to go after some additional points, which we've been working on this week. The deadline's October 1st, so we're hoping to get an additional 70 points towards that scoring, which would probably put us in a pretty good spot for that. So, I mean, fingers crossed, but that's what we're trying to do is find where these funds are available. And there's other grants, as you're aware of, like the Spark grants and some other things that we can approach as well. But we're definitely looking at a lot of different funding for this.
Did you ask for 300 or
For
the trust fund?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, it was right around there, is it three?
Well, 300 from trust fund and then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a match as well.
Okay.
It's a fairly large project because really it would create the entrance into the park and,
Yeah, and it's a good point. Jim just mentioned that that grant is only for a small portion of it. You know, to develop a park of this, impact, to have this kind of impact is going to cost some money. So that grant is only looking at that parking lot and some of the features right around the parking lot. So that's what we're focused on for the first phase, or what we hope we could do in the first phase.
I bet you're looking at $2.5 million here.
It's possible,
easily,
yeah.
especially with the boardwalk
Yeah.
needs and
Yep.
things like
There's a lot
that.
of permitting with this, and so this is going to be a lengthy process.
And that's really kind of why we have a master plan. If we kind of come to consensus on what this is, then we began our next steps really in looking at developing a phasing plan, what makes sense to build in what order, and what funding sources might fit with different packages. And so that's some of that next steps, and even why funding's going on, there's a few other steps of like getting it through site plan review with the township and things of that nature. So that can all continue as the funding is also being, looked at. So it's a process. But this is a major step when you think of how long this property has been desired, and to really have it in the county's hands now, and the ability to now think about actually doing something out there.
A good example is what we did at the Blue Water River Walk in our Wetlands County Park. That was over a several-year phase. So we did initial phases, which was our wetland restoration, and then we moved into development of the park. And that was over a 3 or 4 year period as we worked to raise the funds for that and also implement the design. So it will take time, but in the end, we hope to have a result that's what you see there.
It's been 10 years before Gratiot County Park.
Yes. Yeah, and Columbus is the same way. We do them as the funds are available, as there's grants available, as what the public sees as needed in those parks. Those all affect how we proceed.
Other than ADA compliance in construction, was there any consideration given to universal access type stuff? And is there anything in the plan?
The entire thing has been incorporated with universal accessibility.
But based on, so what is there for a universal? You're talking about the specs, the widths of the sidewalks and things of that. You're not
Elevations
necessarily
for sidewalks,
talking about
pathways.
special
Well-
matting or anything like that.
Well, there's a lot of different things. One, the beach hasn't been designed. So whether that's a mat or a boardwalk or whatever, again, when we design that, we look at the best available ideas, technology, solutions, things that are out there. But say we do know all these boardwalks will be universal accessible. Being able to get out to these viewing areas will be universal accessible. Pathway surfaces, we look at all the grading. We're looking at what the topography, why we're designing this, we're looking at what's happening to the landforms and making sure that the landforms. In this area here, we show the showmobile, but we also show the space larger, which allows for people, say, to bring their own chair that needs to have their chair not in a lawn, but on a stable surface. And exactly how wide that is, that'll come as we look at the showmobiles. When we go to design that, we'll measure up the showmobiles that are in hand, and then we design to fit those and then also provide additional access. So the showmobiles are universal accessible as well.
And
So-
the canoe and kayak launch will be universally accessible.
Yes.
transfer platform and everything.
In the play area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the play area too. So for anyone who's been near or by the Good Old County Park recently, there's a new universal accessible playground that's replaced the one that was there previously. So if you, that's a place if you want to see how that might look or what the surfacing's like, that's a good example.
Surfacing is important.
Columbus
Like,
County Park as well.
The park that's by the water in New Baltimore has a very nice cushion that is not the particles, it's just almost like a carpet of heavy foam. It seems very nice. It looks like they can clean it off easily. All that.
Yeah,
So that's,
works very well.
good job.
All right, so as time goes by, it'll get more refined. It's kind of like, we started way out here, we're kind of out here, and then, it'll get down tighter as the design tightens down.
Are you pretty certain with all the boardwalk that it would get approved, or is that something they may say, no, you can only have half of what you got here?
That's something we have taken into consideration, so like the way that we're designing the boardwalks and the elevations and the types of boardwalks that we've thought of, those are the types that are most of the time approved throughout the permit process for what we know. There is always that possibility that they will make us change or decrease or move some of them, but that's definitely something that's been thought through, that we have high hopes of it.
At this point in
Yeah,
time.
at this point.
Yeah,
And that we
DNR
have,
would say, no, you can't go across
Yeah.
that part of the wetland. You gotta.
Well, the key to it is the fact we're showing boardwalks. That we're not showing like a filling with a paved pathway that creates a barrier. So the boardwalk lets water flow, critters flow, bugs flow, everybody still being able to do what they do, but the boardwalk is up above that.
Yeah, minimal disruption.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll certainly engage, reviewers and the permitting process early on, so that we can talk through the plan with them and kind of get feedback and make slight adjustments as needed.
Because if they cut a lot of that, that would make it pretty difficult to get out there. So,
Yes, it would. We
Well,
still
and
would
there's
want to maintain
even
that
methods
circulation.
that we've used in the parks too, of building things where you can literally build a section, move your little excavator out on the boardwalk,
Yeah.
build the next section, and build as you go, so you're not even digging up the surface while you're constructing them. So there's some really nice techniques out there to be very sensitive to what is there. And that's the type of, I think, development we'd be looking at.
Plus, like in the wetlands too, we work with Friends of the St. Clair River. We work with, we're going to have a park naturalist
okay.
and SISMA and a couple other groups that are going to help us with maintaining the native species in that park. And they're also going to work to remove invasives, which we all know we have around here. So
that's actually
There's
an
lots of
ongoing
work.
process too that has already been started in that
Yep.
park. Is
Yep.
some removal of things.
when we first got the property, we're working with 6 rivers. We started on Phragmites right away. So
How high is the park versus the water right now, or just I'm thinking, if the
The
water goes
park-
up a foot or two,
Yeah, so the main park is right around 580, and then the water is down at 576.
I was going to say about 5 feet, 4 feet,
Yeah.
about 4 to 5 feet.
okay.
So, and that again, that higher black squiggly line, that is like the 100-year flood elevation.
Right.
So you don't normally see water that will get up past that.
Yeah, and you'll see too
And
that,
you're going to be building those walkways high enough to accommodate
yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, so those should.
fluctuations.
We will be
in the water.
required to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we can just keep saying yes, because we know we'll be required to. Good. Well, thank you all for coming back. It's good to be able to share where your thoughts went.
And if you do want to be kept updated, just put your name on that sign-in sheet and make sure you get information as it develops.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.